space conferences. Today we're going to talk about the further into the future, somewhere between 5 and 20 years from now. And I'm very excited about this day because I helped put it together, and I hope you guys enjoy it just as much as I enjoyed putting it together and getting all these wonderful speakers lined up. We're going to start today with Reverend Rick Tumlinson talking about the Earthlight Institute, followed by Rick and Bob going on to talk about their idea for a Mars colony we could have by the year 2030. After a networking break, we're going to have it's not going to be just another Google Lunar X Prize panel. We're going to call it the end game of the GLXP. Now, most of you have probably been to dozens of conferences where the GLXP has gotten together, and they've all gotten together with all the teammates, and they said, oh yeah, we're doing this, and we're all working together, la-di-da, lots of, stroking egos. This is going to be completely different. We're going to be focusing entirely on what's going to come from the Google Lunar X Prize. How can we avoid the flags and footprints scenario we saw in Apollo? For our lunch break, the chairman of the B612 Foundation, Ed Liu, former astronaut, is going to be giving a talk. So if you are going to be joining us for lunch, we hope you enjoy talking more about asteroids because we have yet another asteroid speaker planned for lunch. Following lunch, Dr. James Ruther is going to be talking about the NASA Technology Roadmap, a series of roadmaps that they've put out in various technology theaters that will help us advance space exploration. And immediately following the roadmap talk, we're going to have a panel of technology experts in other fields talk about how their fields can influence what we do in space. Finally, for the last part of the day, we're going to close with George Whitesides as our final keynote speaker, talking about Virgin Galactic, CEO of Virgin Galactic. And then the last thing we're going to do today before our gala reception is have a panel called Opening the Space Frontier on a Budget, where we talk about, before that, we're going to talk about the technologies that are going to be developed over the next 20 to 30 years. With that panel, we're going to talk about what would happen if technology development continues at the same pace as it's going today if there's no amazing major breakthroughs that we can count on. For instance, we all talk about nuclear fission power happening somewhere in the next 50 years, which is what we've been saying for the last 50 years. So what would happen if we can only count on the technology we have today that's growing at the rate it is growing right now? But before we start off with all that, I'd like to bring up the chairman of the Tea Party in Space to give a quick update on ITAR. Here he is, Andrew Gasser.
Thank you very much. I just put together a few slides for everybody because as we talk about making space a place for economic commerce to take place, we need to make sure that we are letting our politicians know what is helping us and what is hindering us. So with that, next slide, please. We've had legislation introduced into the House, and it's passed. And what this is going to do is it's going to take commercial satellites off of the United States munition list, and it's going to go ahead and put that onto the EAR, or the Export Administration Regulations. This would save a lot of our satellite companies a lot of money. They're not going to have to go through all of the paperwork and documentation that's currently required by the Department of State. It's already passed through the House. They attached it as an amendment on the NDAA, and it received bipartisan support. Both Republicans and Democrats support this. So it was really exciting when we found out that a Democrat in the United States Senate actually proposed this in the Senate. Obviously, the Senate is controlled by the Democrats, so the fact that we have a Democrat supporting this is absolutely huge. So we're really excited because we actually think we can finally get ITAR reform started this year. The analogy I like to say is we are at the 2-yard line, and it's first and goal, but it's the start of the fourth quarter. But if we can punch it in right now, it would be absolutely huge. Next slide, please. So what can you do? What can you do to help the Senate get this through? Honestly, it starts with building relationships. I've been in Washington in and out of Washington for about 1.5 years now, and I can tell you that it's not enough just to call your senator when you get an email or when you get the word that, hey, you need to call your senator, you need to call your congressman, you need to go out there and make sure they understand that they need to vote for Bill X. You need to develop a relationship with that. So what we want to do is kind of tell you, hey, this is what you can do between now and September when this bill will actually come to the Senate floor and when they try to attach it to the NDAA in the Senate. One of those things you can do is you can call your senator in Washington, or you can call one of their field offices in their state. The other thing you can do is you can email, and you can actually go visit them. The thing is you want to make sure that when you're going ahead and you're reaching out to these congressional and senatorial staffs, you're not hitting them every week with a different piece of information, because at some point you become part of the noise and you're not part of the signal. So what we like to do, and what I do personally, is I've got a few relationships, but I put it all into Google Calendar. So I know this week I need to send out 10 emails, I need to call these 5 offices, and I need to make sure that I go visit at least 1 or 2 senators in their office. So Google Calendar is a great tool for that. Next slide, please. So we, the advocates and the grassroots, have done an amazing job. Gary Anderson in the back over there has gone to Washington. I've been there. And we've hit a bunch of the offices. And while they're hearing from us, they haven't heard from industry. It is a recurring theme. So we need to go ahead and make sure that our industry partners who are going to benefit from this reform are out there talking to these senators and saying, you know what, these Tea Party guys, I know it's going to hurt, but these Tea Party guys, they kind of know what they're talking about. So we need to make sure that you guys go out there and just let them know that this ITAR reform is good, and it's not going to go ahead and allow us to transfer rocket technology to any of these rogue states who sponsor terrorism. I know that there's a big contingent that worries about technology transfer to China. The legislation is rock solid. We actually worked with some people in the House who have reviewed the Senate bill, and they're actually happy with it. So if this makes it through the Senate, which it should, that means it'll go to conference, and the president will sign it, and it would be a great thing. And this is just the first step, because once we get commercial satellites, then we can start working in academia. Right now in the United States, we don't build CubeSats. Why? ITAR. There's just so much regulation, and we have so many students that come in from outside the United States. It's just too much of a financial burden for our academic institutions. Next slide, please. So if you're not familiar with all the ins and outs of ITAR, we've actually been writing about it, and we have 3 articles on our website that go into it has a white paper. It actually has the bill itself, so you can read it. And we also don't give you bullet points, because if you call up your senator, your congressman, and you're reading from a piece of paper and it's a bullet point, they're gonna know you're a seminar caller and not or really take your voice as serious as it should. That's my real email. That's the one I use. So if you ever have any questions, please email me. If you have any questions later on, I'll be in the back. Can't miss me. Thank you very much for your time, and thanks to the Space Frontier Foundation for giving me a few minutes to speak.